McGrath comes in, it's on its way, it's there! The miracle on grass!
Owen with a kick to full forward, Cloak, not quite, Blair, Collingwood, back in front.
The seed, he delays the give, Franklin, this is Buddy Franklin! This is the greatest showman! Poor fans can't bear to watch. They led by 28 points at one stage, but the perfect storm has erupted. Oh, who else? McDonald.
It really wouldn't be a regular day in the life of trying to record shows without technical difficulties, but here we are. We're in a fantastic mood this evening or morning, whenever you're listening, wherever country you're listening from, whether you're listening from the sunny, wait, no, it's winter. So is that the cold? But in winter in Australia, does it even get cold in winter?
It gets cooler, but it's
Okay.
it's not super bad. It is temperate, but it also depends on where you are too. I know some inland places in Victoria do get chilly, but compared to maybe your beloved Idaho or maybe even my Iowa, it's probably pretty temperate compared to most. So,
We just got a snowstorm in May, which is just about summer. I don't really think they do that a whole lot in Australia, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sorry we couldn't be live, but at least we're going, we got this now. You're stuck with us now, whether you want to or not, because we got another round of footy to break down. And would we really be breaking down around the footy if we weren't just continually bringing up some polarizing issues, either among the Twitter base, the media? Shout Victoria, you guys are certainly a special breed. And or also, well, yeah, that new, was it a newspaper or a news station that we're going to talk about in terms of Dustin Martin and Sydney conversations? They're definitely not exactly the most trusted source. So we're going to take some news with a mountain of salt today, and it's going to be a lot of fun. What we got, I mean, the old Frio, are they back? Unfortunately, they might be. The current hottest team in the league is actually going to surprise you who it is. And I mean, probably, maybe. We'll see. And there's some teams with some worries. Like I said, Dustin Martin, Sydney news, following up on some more grand final news, because of course, is it really a footy talk show if you don't bring up Twilight Grand Final? And there's some teams that just kind of feel meh right now. So we're going to debate on who that is, plus our tips, and of course, the best team of the round. But of course, I'm your host, Ross Allen, joined alongside by the best in the business, Coach Donnie Hess. Coach, how are we feeling after this most recent round of footy?
oh, very interesting round of footy, especially when it comes to just the unpredictability. Again, some shocking results that I have to admit, and 100% see all of them, but a couple of them I definitely could see on the horizon, especially the St. Kilda over Geelong. That was definitely one I could see happening. But just the round results were quite interesting to me, just because you got a little bit of everything. You had some good games, you had some absolutely atrociously ugly games.
Shout out West Coast again.
Story. You got some historic wins. You got some end of an eras, a little bit of everything. Just a menagerie of fun footy this weekend. So,
right,
so
the
a
Giants
lot of
giving
fun topics to talk about.
Giants giving Cameron the perfect send off.
The giant send off, literally.
No, it's a giant flop of a send off, but it be like that sometimes. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, if you haven't caught us before, go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube. We're on Rumble. Typically, we're on Twitch. We live stream on Twitch, live stream on YouTube as well. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or you can catch us over at thefourthandlong.com. Make sure to hit us up on our social media pages as well, Twitter and Instagram at Fourth and Long Media. And of course, Coach Dunn, you can catch him at Coach Hess 40. But kick us off for this one, of course, what other way to go into things than to be the best kind of person that you see anywhere in any sports fandom, and that is the one that makes crazy asinine assumptions off of very little to go off of. Of course, you know by that, it's time to overreact to round 9 of the AFL season. Of course, for those that don't know how this works, I got 3 statements I'm going to throw at Coach Donnie here, and it's up to him to determine whether it's an overreaction or if there's actually some truth to it. And of course, you guys more than welcome to sound off in the comments or hit us up on our socials. Just share your thoughts because I know you're going to have some. But starting us off, statement number 1 for this week, that is that the old Fremantle Dockers are back. And this is on their performance of some not so great goal kicking, to say the least, kicking 4 and 9 against the Suns, looking awfully similar to where they were at the last year or two.
All right. This is one of those that if you just look at the scoreboard, if you just look at the stat sheet, yes, you would think this is a complete accurate statement that the old Fremantle is back. The Fremantle that goes on the road, can't win, but can win at home. No, this is an overreaction. And here's the reason why. There was a downpour at least 2 or 3 times during this. I watched this entire game. I had to watch this game because I thought this was
like going out there, dude.
Well, this was going to be a very fun one because again, you're in Queensland. Queensland is still in a little bit of the tropics, so you're still going to get humid weather. So the ball's going to be slick. So it's not as easy to control. And another reason I think this isn't old Freo is because I think the Gold Coast Suns are legitimately maybe starting to find that mojo that I think we've always wondered when it's going to come. Mm-hmm. So I don't really put this down to bad Freo. I put this down to Freo getting tested for really, in a way, I don't think they expected. And then you add, like I said, you add the crappy weather, raining, dewy. It was slick. The footy was definitely there. And then a lot of heat. I mean, both teams were tackling, like both teams had over 200 pressure in the first quarter, which is, that is insane pressure. That is, you get it, you got to get rid of it or you're getting tackled. Like that's literally how crazy this game was, especially.
Well, that's what happens on the side of, on Freo's side. If you want going to tackling, they were tackling machines with Caleb and Andrew Brayshaw with 24 combined between the two. Two of the top 5 tackle leaders for this game. So it's definitely a defensive game of footy.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and then again, like I said, the weather conditions were conducive too, and just Gold Coast took their shots. Marby Ochoa kicks 4 goals, which is an incredible performance from the former Tigers ruckman, who I think has found himself a nice little niche up in the Gold Coast. So I hate putting this all on on the Fremantle Dockers. I think that there was a lot of expectations when they kind of went on their run a little bit, and this kind of brought them down to earth a little bit. And I think Justin Longmuir he'll take a few things from this. He'll make some adjustments. Again, Optus Stadium is still a fortress. It is difficult to win out there. So if I'm a Fremantle Dockers fan, as frustrating as this is to not win a game that I think a lot of people were kind of down looking Gold Coast a little bit. They were looking at Gold Coast being an easy 4 points. And it's I don't think that's the case this year. I think Gold Coast is not in the West Coast and the Essendon and the North Melbourne category right now where it's a guaranteed 4 points. It's not. Gold Coast is going to test you. They are going to push you. And if you don't have your best game, aka the Swans, aka Fremantle, you're going to get beat. So I don't think this is old Fremantle back. I'm going to hang a little bit more of the medal on Gold Coast a little bit this week because I think honestly, Gold Coast is maybe starting to change a few minds on can Gold Coast make the finals because they're still in striking distance. So keep an eye on those pesky Gold Coast Suns.
You know, I really like where you took that one. And I just got to say, both you and I, maybe me a little bit more, but now I'm going to give you plenty of credit. We've both been fairly high on the Suns, or at least higher than the general consensus is what it feels like since going back to last year. So when the Suns finally make the finals within the next 3 seasons, I'm glad that we are going to be ahead of the train. I'm not holding you to the 3 seasons statement. I'm holding myself to 3 seasons. It's going to happen. You can make that and mark that as one of Ross's guarantees. That is, go ahead, bet the house. Also, Fourth Line Media does not condone any sorts of betting of houses or any other matters. So
only gamble responsibly.
Only gamble responsibly if my money is on the line. If not, have fun. Wait, can we not say that? But Gold Coast, it really deserves to have some more respect to put on their name. And I guess for Frio, this is a bit of a gut check. It's a gut check. It's not necessarily a bad loss. It's not a loss you really expect to take and want to take. But almost like what we were talking with Melbourne last week is that a loss like this, it might actually help them in the future. It might actually help them play to maybe their potential and not to take anyone easy, even if it's West Coast. So even them don't want to do that, but they're also really bad. Statement number 2, and this is kind of going back to some of the other things you said last round, almost hinting at it, and that is that the Port Adelaide Power are the hottest team in the league.
Well, if you look at their form ladder, other than Melbourne, they are other than Melbourne.
4 straight.
This is the only other team in the last 4 that have won all 4 games.
Wait, so have we come full circle with the Hinkley picture with the 04? Wait, the 04. Can we use that in the positive sense for them now?
we could maybe. I don't know. It is one of those where, and I saw somebody point this out is the fact that unfortunately Port Adelaide's 4 wins have not exactly been against the most difficult teams in the world over the last 4 weeks. I mean, we look at it here, just going off of the results. Yes, they faced the Western Bulldogs, who I think is a team that is very, very interesting. But you've got North Melbourne, the St. Kilda Saints, and what many people would say is kind of an equalizing Cairns, and the West Coast Eagles.
They got the 17s, the 6, the 18, and then the Doggies, who are just 1%. Not even a full percentage point. They are 0.5 percentage points ahead of Port Adelaide on the ladder right now.
Exactly. So that's their 4. So you could, some would even argue that maybe this is a 4 that it's 2 guaranteed wins, an iffy, scrappy win that you win against a St. Kilda team that I think was not ready for the environment that they were going to go into, and then a Western Bulldogs team that, I mean, at the time was definitely injured, was definitely banged up, and was just not playing very good football. So I'm one of those, I almost want this statement to go another week because I want to see how they handle this week, because
Geelong's
this week they get Geelong at the Cattery down at GMHBA down at Geelong. If Port goes down to Geelong and gets a big win and gets the 4 points there, then it is hard not to argue that this is not the hottest team in all of the AFL, even more than Melbourne, because Melbourne has been unconvincing even against some of the lower teams.
16 so straight wins for them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then again, no, they still really haven't played the cream of, until St. Kilda this week. They hadn't exactly played the creme de la creme of the league. So I'm gonna say right now it's not a real reaction, because again, they're the second best winning percentage in the last 4 weeks, behind the Melbourne Demons, who are 5-0, especially since Freo lost this week. But I don't know. I hate jumping to this again, because again, I look at West Coast and I look at North Melbourne. That's pretty much 2 guaranteed wins. And the St. Kilda win was one of those. It was a scrappy win in an ugly environment, but
still a good one, though.
But you found a way to win that game, especially. And then a Doggies team that I think when they get their right guys back, I think are going to be clawing at the final. So for sure. So I'm gonna say right now it's not an overreaction, and it's definitely not an overreaction if they find a way to win this round against the Geelong Cats.
I like that. I mean, if you take a look at the form, essentially they have 2 games that they should have won and 2 games that were competitive and, once they had to battle for. When you take a look at, Melbourne's last few stretch of games there, let's see how many games that they, I guess, had to battle for, if you want to really put it that way. Last round, of course, it was the West Coast Eagles. So, no, it's probably harder to go up against a tackling dummy than is West Coast right now. They beat St. Kilda, which, if we're going to give Port Adelaide credit, we'll give Melbourne credit. That was a good win. They beat Hawthorn. I'll count that as a good win. They beat Richmond. I'll count that as a good win. But the Hawthorne was the injured one, though.
Well, here's kind of my argument as I look at it is that you go off the doggies. The doggies were relatively full strength their first game of the season, but after that, you play a Gold Coast team at the time that was not playing that good of footy. I mean, they definitely did not play well. An Essendon team that, as we can tell now, has been absolute dumpster fire since and around then. At the time they played Port Adelaide in round 3, Port Adelaide was 0-2, not playing well. A GWS team, kind of the same way, weren't playing well. Richmond, at the time that Melbourne played them, weren't playing well. So again, Melbourne right now has not played until they played St. Kilda last round. They really have not played any teams that are playing well at the time that they played them. Again, is this cherry picking facts a little bit? Maybe. Is this splitting hairs when it comes to a really good team? Yes. But I look at it here's the thing that I really want to see it. And I think it's going to be more of a gauge on Fremantle than this last game against Gold Coast. And that's round 11. This round 10, they get North Melbourne.
Freo.
Again, I think Melbourne can have their eyes closed and win this game. Again, all due respect, North Melbourne fans, I'm sorry, but that's how good Melbourne is. They could probably play with their eyes closed and still probably win the game. Fremantle, Sydney, Collingwood, Brisbane are their next 4 after this round. That's going to be their testers. That's going to be where we see the mettle of this team. Does Melbourne step up and show why they're the cream of this league, or do they regret, or do they fall back to the pack and we now start seeing some parity the rest of the way this league goes? I don't know. Honestly,
$1 question.
If Melbourne plays the way I think they can, this is where they prove they are the absolute best in this entire competition. But you just never know.
I think
that's literally the way this goes.
Brisbane is one that like really would worry me as a Melbourne fan, or at least worry me the most. Sydney and Freo, after recent tests, those look like way more winnable games than they were maybe a couple rounds ago. Still huge tests though, but Brisbane's really the only team that hasn't fallen off out of those clubs.
Brisbane's had its moments, and I look at it like this: is that don't knock Fremantle as much, because again, I think Gold Coast is better. Gold Coast is playing. Fremantle played a better Gold Coast team than Melbourne did. So I kind of don't want to downgrade Fremantle too much. I think Fremantle's still a finals team. I think Fremantle can still be a top 4 team. I just think they had a bad day and some crappy weather, and they just didn't handle it as well as I think they probably should. Sydney's another one. I look at it like this: if Sydney plays the quick, really precise ball movement game, I think they could give Melbourne some headaches. The issue will then be is, can Sydney stop the contested game in the middle, and can Peter Laddams and Tom Hickey at least neutralize Jackson and Gawn to the point where it's basically a battle of who's more accurate kicking the goals. Like, I think I'm really excited as a Sydney supporter. I'm really excited because that is going to be a test for a young Swans team that has looked inconsistent a lot this year. But it really could be a game that if Sydney is on, if they're kicking accurately, they can give Melbourne trouble, because they don't just have one target, and they can manipulate the defense enough, especially if Buddy is playing as good as he did against Essendon, where he's picking off targets everywhere. Again, it's Essendon, which is the other response. Essendon wasn't exactly defensively sound in this game. But if they're hitting their kicks, they could give Melbourne some trouble. Am I going to sit here and say Melbourne's going to lose that game? No, because until Melbourne loses, it's hard to tip against them. But
exactly,
I like I said, that 4-game stretch there, and Collingwood, they've fallen off a bit. I think they're kind of coming back to where I think a lot of people saw them at. But that's still a tough test after 2 tough games with Fremantle and Sydney, then having to play Collingwood, and then having to play Brisbane. And the crazy part about all 4 of these games, if you look at it, they're all at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. So Melbourne doesn't have to do any travel in any of these games.
That's ridiculous. And for Jeff, not playing any favorites with Melbourne, are they? Maybe we'll see. Might have to have a word with those schedule makers to see what you guys are doing there. But
they've kind of 2 on, 2 off, because both these last 2 games were at Optus Stadium, and this week will be at Marvel, so it'll technically be the road team. So it's kind of been that way a little bit. So I'm not going to sit there, but they kind of got the niceties when it comes to the schedule makers of getting their 3 toughest games in this 4-game stretch, all as them as the home team. And then Collingwood also plays at the same stadium they play. So all 4 games are at the same venue.
I'm just saying,
So-
someone might be helping them out. Someone might be a bit of a D's fan up in that room. That's all I'm saying. But that could definitely, that Sydney game, if they can come out, I mean, obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's in a few rounds, and I'm excited for that. But if they can somehow, manage a way to out offense Melbourne and to be able to come away with the win in that one, that is a catalyst for a hell of a finish to your season, and that win will go a long way. But sticking with Sydney, let's get into the last statement here of the overreactions. And it's safe to say that there's a handful of teams this round that did not have the best of times in front of the goals, especially when it comes to trying to kick it through the middle one, which is, of course, if you guys don't know, that 6 points, the outer ones are just 1 point. So the goal is to kick it through the middle. I know it's kind of brand new advice and coaching. Donnie, I'm sorry to be stepping on your toes here as you're the real coach, but apparently we got some learning to do. There are some teams that didn't have the best of games when it came to goal kicking accuracy. Obviously, the mighty West Coast Eagles in their glory, they had a normal game, essentially. Actually, they scored 38. That's better than average for them. Good job, West Coast. You guys really knocked that one out of the park. Yeah, the Dockers team that we mentioned that didn't have the best, but also they were playing against some pretty poor weather. Yet Essendon, not a great game. Adelaide with a better game, but 9-12, still not exactly where you want to be. And then you had Sydney kicking 14 and 21, great score there, but definitely some behind action in that one. But with that being said, last statement of the round, Sydney had the most worrying goal kicking this week.
I again, being the Swans fan, I watched this game live, and it's one of those, if you look at the shot total, I mean, 35 shots on goal. That's pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Again, I hate doing this, Bombers fans. Please don't be angry with me, but this is the truth. It was against the Bombers, and the Bombers have not been defensively sound. But I look at this, and I wanted to pull this up because I wanted to see who the biggest defenders were. And just going off the forward line, you have three behinds kicked by Tommy Papley, 4 behinds kicked by Lance Franklin, 2 behinds kicked by Isaac Heaney, 2 behinds kicked by Peter Laddams, and 2 behinds kicked by Will Hayward. The fact that it's your forwards kicking the behinds is both a good and a bad sign. It's a good sign because it means you're getting the ball into your forwards and you're getting your forward shots on goal. The bad part is that in a game where you're not playing a team that's as atrocious playingly as Essendon is, that can come back to bite you. So
exactly, especially in the sense we're just talking about with Melbourne as well.
Is this a worrying sign? Yes. I'm not going to say this is an overreaction. I actually agree with this. This is a worrying sign because as many times as they went in, this game probably should have been a 100-point win for the Swans. If I'm being 100% honest, again, Bombers fans, please don't hate me. I'm just telling the truth. Buddy Franklin had 6 shots on goal and he was 2 and 4, 2 goals, 4 behinds. If he gets half of those and has 4 goals, this game is different. If Papley isn't as wayward because he's trying to kick it as hard as he can instead of just being nice and easy, I think this game gets out of hand and gets out of hand quickly. So again, going into a tough game against the Carlton Blues this week, if I'm Horst Longmire, I definitely make sure to get us some goal kicking practice because you cannot keep Carlton in the game if you're going to get a lot of inside 50s because they can score and score quickly. Now, we'll have to see. It's a completely different situation, and Carlton is now dealing with some issues, including the fact that Williams is now going to be out for a significant amount of time. Thankfully, I will say this, Blues fan, thankfully it was not an Achilles, it is a calf strain.
Yes.
It is a bad calf strain, so it sounds like he's probably going to be out to the finals.
Absolutely better than ruptured Achilles, though. That's not. It's not season ending.
Exactly. Well, and it's not a 12-monther to where he's coming in 6-7 rounds next year as well. Exactly. So it's one of those, you cross your fingers, you think, God, it's not the worst possible situation, which is great. But that's a worrying sign for Carlton because if Sydney can get it going, that's one less defensive body to be able to throw back there. So it'll be quite interesting. I look at a lot of these games this week, and there's some interesting matchups that I think could go either way if certain things happen. So,
Stay along till the tipping. Uh-huh.
I'll state it right now, and I already told Ross this. I have a bold tip this week. I'm going to take the bold tipping mantle at least for 1 week.
Bro, that's what I'm saying. So, like, if you guys have listened to any tipping, any show, you know that I have my one a week, and I promise you, I still have that one a week this round. It might be a little bit different from Donnie's, but I gotta say, I'm so proud of you. This is awesome. Can't wait to have. Maybe it'll give me a way
for me this tip I don't think is as bold as some people think it. Some people might make it out.
That's the beauty of these bold tips, Donnie. That's the beauty. Some of mine, okay, I'll be honest. Some of mine are just like really stupid, and like I probably shouldn't tip them. Others,
you aim for the fence. You aim for the fences. You're like Babe Ruth. You're pointing to the fence and hoping you just hit it.
Hey, sometimes they hit. Sometimes they don't, but you know, that's a fun thing. But I want to bring this statement up to you, especially being a Swans fan as yourself, just because taking a look at watching the game, taking a look at the stat sheet, you know, between the inside 50s, the 35 shots on goal, and not even counting all the ones that totally just missed the mark as well. The goal attempts, if you want putting those numbers, this game should have been way, way, way more of a bigger win for Sydney, especially against the best. Now I'm coming to you, man. We've said it way too much. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't mean to keep rubbing in your face, but it kind of happens when it's a fact. You know, you join me, take solace, and I'm a Giants fan, so we all suck. And I talk the most crap about them of anyone I've ever heard. It's great. You would not think I'm a supporter of them, but I guess it's just, when we were comparing them to these bigger games they're going to have, you know, the Melbourne and stuff like that, the Carlton, these games like this are going to beat you the Essendons, the West Coast, the Adelaides, sometimes the Suns, but it's hard to beat the true finals contender when you have performances like this. For their sake and for my sake, for my prediction's sake, I hope they fix things, and for your sake, I hope you don't go crazy. So I hope they start to you know, get things together, because we already have one sad fan here. We don't need two of them, especially two from the Sydneys as well. It's not necessary, even though the Giants are greater. It's only in name and not, especially not what we see on the field. But that's going to do it for our overreaction for this round. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, or hit us up over on our socials. Is the old Fremantle back? Is Port Adelaide the hottest team in the league right now? And does Sydney have a problem that they need to assess and worry about? But before we get into what the blank, it's time to bring up two fairly controversial, fairly hot button issues, and certainly ones that are going to spark emotion and strong opinions. Starting us off is sticking with the Swans as well. There's some news, and I'm gonna put some rumblings, and you know, take this one with the. Take the whole salt shaker. I'll be honest with you guys. Just go over to the ocean. You guys are on the coastline. Go over to the ocean real quick and just start chugging, because you're going to need some salt content for this one. And that is that Dustin Martin is all but guaranteed to be heading to the Sydney Swans next year, right? According to this very coveted was a reporting site, news site.
Oh boy, how to unwrap this particular Christmas present. My gosh. All right. So let's break this down.
You know, I serve them up to you well.
Oh yeah, you're giving to me on a very interesting silver platter here. Okay. So no, he is not all but guaranteed to come to Sydney. According to this report, and again, I take it with a lot of grain of salt, because this is the Sydney Herald, which is a Sydney-based paper that is not exactly known for its accuracy when it comes to its stories. Sometimes it's a little bit of an opinion. There's a certain news station in the States that I compared it to in my particular Twitter content in a discussion. If it offends you, I'm sorry, but that is my opinion. If you have a problem with it, well, you know what? I don't care. It's my opinion. I can have it, just like you can have your opinion as well. Plain and simply, what it says is that Dusty Martin is having discussions with the Sydney Swans. Now, as a Swan supporter, I've had many people ask me this question, and I've asked many Swan supporters this. The common answer by most Swan supporters is, we're good. We don't need you, Dusty. As much as we'd love to have you, unless you're planning on taking a massive pay cut and being a guy that's going to come in and help our youngsters progress and not take their spot, we'll pass. We'll let you stay in. We'll let you stay in Victoria. You'll do fine. Or go on over to the guys over in Orange if you feel like it. Which, unfortunately, I don't think they can afford you either. So they can't. No. They have too many $1 million players currently on their list. There's no way they're going to be able to afford them.
Love the talent to wins ratio. It's
and some Richmond fans are going to get a little salty on this one again. All due respect, I'd rather have Lance than Dusty. And I understand Dusty is an incredible player, but I said this pre-camera. I said, I think both of these gentlemen are past their prime. They are still great. They're still excellent players, but they both are not in their prime anymore. They are not the players that they used to be. There is some regression in both sides. And for me, I would rather have the big, tall forward that can nurture our forwards. I think our midfield already has a solid enough leader in Joey Kennedy and Luke Parker. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about our midfielding needing help. I would rather go see if we can talk Alex Rance, the former Richmond defender, into joining the Swans, because I think that's where we would actually need much more senior leadership. Mm-hmm. For our young Swans defenders, and like Justin McInerney, Nick Blakey, and Tommy McCartan. And that's been the revelation with Paddy McCartan coming back in and being that big-bodied intercept defender. So I'm one of those. Again, if they could get Dusty on a massively small contract for him, I'll say that for him. And it's not going to cost the Swans any of their youngsters. I would be okay with that. I know that's pie in the sky. Richmond fans, I know this. This is massive pie in the sky here. So I'm not even going to joke that it's possible. I don't think it is. As much as I think he wants to come up to Sydney, unless Lance retires, and by everything I'm hearing, he's happy. He wants to keep playing. I would rather have Lance than Dusty. And again, I know for some people that's ludicrous discussion. I'd rather have Lance if I'm being 100% honest with myself, because I like what Lance is doing currently. I don't think that's a crazy take, because with one of these things, it's simple. You want to know what we can do, Donnie, right now? We're going to get a list. Just good old fashioned. When you have a dilemma, what do you do? Break out the pros cons list. All right, let's see here. My handy dandy notepad. So pros. Generational talent, that's a future Hall of Famer. Yes. Winning experience. Yes. Great team guy with a great field kick.
Yeah, we'll do that. He'll bring the media with him. Wait, no, that's a con. That's a hardcore con. I hate the media. Then he doesn't need that. Cons, shit ton of money. Might take the ball away from young players. Shit ton of money. We'll put that one twice to emphasize how much money it is. And also, I don't think the fit's there when it comes to, even like I was telling you earlier, even if, say, these guys were exactly the same position, exactly the same talent level, exactly the same money, I would still side with Lance, just because there's one thing Buddy has that Dusty Martin will never have, and that is a lot of experience with this current Swans team. And that is irreplaceable. It's hard to put a numerical value on that. I think if they were to have a perfect situation where they could somehow make this work, then cool. But let's be real.
Oh, and again, I said it's pie in the sky, because I mean, is there ever going to be a possible way that you could get Dusty Martin and Buddy Franklin on minimal money and they both take it? Now, I think there's some people that would be crazy enough to think it's possible. And if Buddy wants to continue to play and he wants to win a flag, there are pros over here that have done it tons of times. I mean, I know you don't like discussing it because you're a Broncos fan, but how many guys were in the latter part of their careers and they took pennies to go play with Tom Brady and the Patriots during the Patriots run? How many times did that happen? You don't see it as much in the AFL.
Look, the Bucks too. The Bucks recently as well. Just put Richard Sherman out there. He's one of those guys.
But it'd be very, very interesting to see that potentially happen. Like to see Dustin Martin go, you want to know what? I'll play for $300,000 as long as I can play. I mean, I know that's not going to happen.
So here we go.
I know it's not going to happen.
Plays for a very team-friendly deal where they can make this happen without having to drop or trade away their young stars that they're building this team upon. Would you consider the Swans to be finals or to be flag favorites next season? They have Lance, they have Dusty, they have everyone in place right now. All they do is add.
Oh, if they add Dusty to this already team with no losses, are they a finals or flag contender? Yes,
they're contenders, but are they?
I think they are. I mean, think about a forward line at one time of having Lance Franklin at the full forward or even center half forward if you wanted to, with Tommy Papley and Isaac Heaney as your pockets, and then Dusty Martin, Luke Parker, Dusty Martin, Luke Parker, and any combination of Sam Wicks, Will Hayward, James Bell. That's scary because who do you guard?
Sounds ridiculous.
Who do you take? Because as soon as you take one, 4 others are free. Because there's no way you're going to have 4 solid defenders. I mean,
sounds like the perfect AFL fantasy team right there.
It's a scary team offensively. And think about this: is that Luke Parker can go into the midfield and rotate off with James Rowbottom, with McInerney, with Warren. I mean, Chad Warner's in there. You've got Callum Mills, who's playing out of his skin this year. So that's kind of how scary that. Again, I know this is pie in the sky. I don't think this is going to happen. It is interesting to think about that. Would Dusty take a mega small deal to play with the Swans, and then would there be any fallout from it? Like, would there be a player that would go? I don't think it's going to be easy. There are still some free agents that need to be signed. Mm-hmm. And the biggest question is, does Lance resign? If Lance doesn't, like, here's the other option I've heard. Lance retires. Lance doesn't decide to play. He decides to retire. Does Dusty come in and basically take his contract? That's the only other way I can see Dusty getting into Sydney is if Lance goes, like, there's also the possibility Lance is Western Australian. If he decides to go play for Freo or West Coast, which Fremantle would probably be, Fremantle would be the one I think he'd fit the best in, because I think he'd be able to step in for Rory Lobb. Sounds like he's been wanting out of the West Coast for 2 or 3 years now. So you drop him, you bring in Buddy on minimal money just because he wants to be back in his home state. Mm-hmm. That's the only way I see Dusty coming in, is if Lance leaves. But everything I'm hearing, Lance loves it in Sydney. He doesn't have to worry about being in the fishbowl of Melbourne, and he's playing great footy. He wants to continue, and he wants to continue with Sydney because he's kind of attached to these young players. Like, again, I've stated it a couple of times in the podcast. Watch Sydney games, and one of the first guys to a guy that kicks a goal that isn't Buddy Franklin is usually Buddy Franklin. When he's on the field, if Tommy Papley kicks a goal, Lance Franklin's one of the first there. If Isaac Heaney kicks a goal, Lance Franklin's one of the first ones that's there. James Bell, Sam Wicks, Will Hayward, Luke McDonald, Sam Reed, Peter Laddams, any of the forwards kick a goal, Buddy's usually one of the first 2 guys to him. So he gets excited. Like, he's very much become a team guy. I mean,
I love it. I love it so much.
I agree with what one person said. He was almost going out of his way to find teammates in this game against Essendon. And it was scary watching his field kick. I mean, everybody's used to his long goals, kicking and all that.
Vision is ridiculous.
He has got a very good field kick. He's an underrated field kicker. Mm-hmm. Very, very accurate. So
that's what happens when you kick 1,000 goals in your career. People just kind of think you're a goal kicker, and everything else gets overshadowed no matter how good you are.
Exactly.
Buddy, bro, he's I love him.
So-
I love watching him. He's so much fun to watch. Just in every aspect of the game. In interviews, he's just like as close as you can get to like a perfect player.
I don't know.
Well,
About,
I guess that might be
I don't
going
know
over
about
a little bit
perfect. I don't know about
overboard, but
perfect.
he's amazing.
I don't know about perfect.
To watch, to follow is in terms of captain, being team leadership, play, helping your player, assisting everyone around you, being just a killer yourself, being a coach to everyone. And also he's just entertaining, literally the showman, the greatest showman.
I agree with what one announcer even said, it is that he's kind of like the LeBron James of the AFL. He does things you're not expecting for his size. For a guy that's 6'6", 220, he's quick as a hiccup, he's strong as a bull ox, and he's absolutely incredibly athletic. He is a freak of nature. He's not something that you expect.
Mm-hmm.
Because of his size and athleticism, that he does things guys half his size sometimes can't even do. So it's one of those, he is this unique enigma, and he has been such a blessing to the game. And the fact that he's an Indigenous player and he's accepted his Indigenous heritage, and he does so many things for the Indigenous culture, both on and off the pitch, is absolutely outstanding. It's another thing that I think has been fantastic about the Sydney Swans, is that they really have helped the Indigenous boys that have come through the club really kind of stay connected to the Indigenous culture, which is absolutely fantastic. Speaking of that, we'll have to talk about it next week. Check out the Indigenous jumpers for the Sir Douglas Nichols.
Bit of a clash we got going on.
They are absolutely sick. Cannot wait to see these jumpers on.
They're great for photos. Maybe not so much for gameplay and TV viewing. I guess maybe even harder if you're there in person. Was it the Richmond and Essendon one? That's
Richmond and Essendon are both wearing black, so I don't think they're both. I don't think they're both going to be wearing their Indigenous jumper for Dreamtime. I don't.
That would
be. I don't think they could.
I don't think it's possible, but that would be great. But Buddy Franklin, even more impressive than everything we just listed. Somehow, the only big man that could pull off the all the way up socks. So shout out to him because he's amazing. But going from one story that's a bit of a pipe bomb, a bit of a dream, to one that is stone cold fact and is going to happen no matter you like it or not. A lot of you, more than not, the grand final is going to be taking place at the twilight period this year, and we're following a bit of more of a follow-up on the story that when we were talking about last week, because we have some news from good old the head of the snake himself, the Gil McLaughlin, and that makes it sound like he's not good. He's great. So the head of the lion, the lion's mane, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But he kind of talked a little bit more on the Twilight Grand Final news, and he presented a very straightforward answer to just this whole discussion. And he says, quote, "The simple discussion is what is the best presentation of the game," end quote. So I think this might be one of the better statements that he's put out, and this man has said a lot of good. This is a perfect lens to put this debate through and to view it through. I think you worded this fantastically. So your thoughts on this, Donnie? And I mean, of course, we're going to get a little bit more of a dying soapbox, I'm sure. And I say that with all due respect because I think they're amazing. But taking a look at this debate through this kind of lens, what do you think about it?
Okay, all right. I know this this particular topic has been a burr in the bonnet of so many people. And again, I will state this again to the Australians that are watching this. Both of the members on this podcast would love it to be at 2:30 because it would be much more advantageous for us over here.
Not only just
States.
us, but like the entire US AFL community.
And again, I think that's one of the miscommunications a little bit that I've noticed. And I think you and I both know Brian Barish, and he put out a tweet that kind of got a lot of traction and not always the great traction in the world. And again, I love him because he's one of those guys that will throw he'll shoot the BB at the hornet's nest and take the repercussions of the possibility.
Absolutely.
Do I want it at 2:30? I want it at 2:30. Yes. Do I think it's going to be at the normal traditional time? No. I've laid out a couple of reasons for it. And the reason that I laid these out is because I can't look at it just as a fan. I have to look at it as the overall product of AFL. With them trying to get the new media rights covered as soon as possible, which again, I find fascinating that they're not even up till the end of next year and they're already talking about it now. They need to draw more money, plain and simply. And again, money. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot run this league without money. Okay.
Whoa,
pay these.
Whoa, hot take. Wow. What
that is an ice cold fact take, as many people as they don't want to admit it. They need money to run the league. I mean, the league needs money. It needs more money to be able to pay these superstars the levels that they are going to want to be paid. And then, as I stated off mic a little bit too, with the progression of the women's league, with the progression of all of the things that the AFL wants to do, they're going to need more financial dollars to be able to do it all. And if they sit at 230, they are not going to make any more progressions in any of those categories. Mm-hmm. This is one of those where I understand your frustration now, and I really, really do. And again, I grieve with you. I agree with you. But the reason I state it the way I do is because I see the entire league as a whole, and I know in the long run, A, it needs more money, and B, all due respect, Australians, are you really going to not watch the grand final if your team is in the grand final? That would be a giant no. So I'm seeing a lot of bluster by a lot of fans. And I'm like, all due respect, if your team's in the grand final, are you not going to watch it just because it's not in the time that you want? I'm not going to see too many Australians that are going to turn down the chance to watch their grand final. If they can't get grand final tickets, they're going to watch it on television because they'll want to try to see their team maybe win a premiership, which again is going to make your whole argument on Twitter and your puffery rather blunt and rather listless.
There's not a whole lot of weight to it. It's barking no bite. You're gonna try to pump yourself up like Tyson, and you're gonna be punching like an ant. There's just no comparison. There's no fight behind it. So again, I look at it like this. Do I want it? No. Is it gonna happen? I just have a hard time seeing it not happen. And in fact, I almost can almost guarantee that as much as Gil wants it to be at 2:30 because he is a traditionalist, he did say that in the same quote that he understands and wants a 2:30 grand final.
But he also understands the financial impact of moving it later will bring more financial dollars to the league in the long run, and that's the way to make the league more successful. Again, do I understand that the fans are pissed? Yes. But the fans also have to understand that if they want a league in the next 20 years, they're going to have to progress. It cannot stay the same. No league is going to stay the same and be successful. You have to accept change sometimes, as much as you don't want it to happen.
I think the biggest question here is like, this year we are going to have a evening grand final. The only question really have is if this is going to be the future, if this is going to be the new norm, the new standard. Mm-hmm. It might be a thing. I guess what I see happening right now is that they're going to do it for probably a few years, and when they're able to, I guess I might be optimistic in this, but when they're able to, they're going to go back to 2:30. But if this takes off, I think we might be facing a new norm, unfortunately, to all you traditionalists out there. And one thing I gotta say as well, Gil makes me so obscenely jealous of the AFL and footy fans because they're a league with someone in charge of it that is competent for his position. He's the Rob Manfred. He's the Roger Goodell. They're so lucky. Donnie White can't. It hurts. It hurts seeing someone living your dream.
If you ask some Australians, that he's about the same as those two, unfortunately.
From my view, at least, he is so much better.
Well, and
So much.
here's my counteraction to this. As much as I love your thought process of it eventually going back to 2:30, I'm one of those. It's kind of Pandora's box. Once you open it, you can't go back.
That's why I said
Like, and I think
that's
I
why
think
that's
that,
me being an optimist. Realistically, it's never going to be 2:30 again.
and that's
Never.
the problem with, and it's one of those where COVID both hurt and helped this whole thing. It hurt it because it really kind of threw the wrinkle of they had to play it later because it was in Brisbane. It was where it had all set up. The problem is Pandora's box is open is because the advertisers saw the money because they saw an increase in viewers. And my favorite is so many people who were like, well, that was because Victoria was locked down. Like, yeah, that's great. But that's not what I'm talking about, because Victorians were going to watch it whether they were locked down or not because it wasn't in Victoria. Let's
also,
just answer
COVID,
that question.
The biggest thing I think it ever did is it brought me as a fan to the sport. So you guys are welcome, because subsequently from the show. So,
but that's not it though. Is that the other thing is that the two states that are
special. Oh,
that you're special. You're very.
I'm definitely
you're very,
special.
You're very special. But no. What I also look at it too is if you look at the ratings in New South Wales and Queensland, which are rugby territory, they are not AFL dominated. They are rugby dominated. They saw an increase in ratings as well over the last 2 seasons because the game was in more of a prime time spot. Okay. So that's more of the thing that I look at it too is that if the AFL wants to continue to expand in New South Wales and Queensland, the new time will be more progressive and more helpful to help footy spread in Queensland and New South Wales. Again, Victoria, South Australia, Western Australia, I don't think it's going to, I don't think the time change was really going to affect footy in those states because they're already footy mad. It's the plain and simply honest. Yes, Western Australians and South Australians, I'm giving you credit. You deserve it. You are football mad states. You talk footy. You love footy. You care about your footy teams, plain and simply. But here's the thing. You're going to watch the games because you're footy heads. They're trying to attract more fans there. Again, this is not advantageous for the rest of the world unless you're in Europe. European fans, surprisingly, if you watch some of the Twitter, the European fans are losing their minds because now the game is a little bit more of a decent time for them. So it's kind of a give or take. The USA fans are pissed because it's in the middle of the night, because now they're having to watch it the way Europeans were having their problem of the early AM kickoff times. So again, I'm one of those, if this game goes at twilight, it's not going back. And I don't like saying, trust me, I take no joy in that. It's not going back, because once you open Pandora's box, there's no going back. It is either going to stay as a twilight game for the rest of eternity, or it's going to become a night game, full on 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time permanently.
I guess
I think once it gets to that, it is done.
Because that's a few extra hours. So it's like waking up for work.
That's 4 a.m. That's 4:30 for
never mind.
7 a.m. before 4:30. So that's the twilight game is start about 4, which would be about 1 or 2. So I mean, it's not as super bad as people are kind of making it offense, because the original kickoff time is 2, which is 11. They move it 2 hours there. It's 1 a.m. So yes, it's not advantageous for over here, but I don't think it's as big a time frame as everybody thinks it is. Like, and then again, it's, as we stated last podcast, every single other big sport in the world plays its game as a prime time night game. Champions League final, where it's usually played at night in prime time for most of Europe. NHL, NBA, NFL, all of their championship series and games are played 7 p.m. Eastern, which is prime time.
Even
in
college
the States.
sports, even the big college sports.
Well, the college championship games, some of the bowls, not so much, but that's the thing. The big games, again, yes, I used air quotes for the people that are just listening on the podcast. I used air quotes for that.
There we go.
They are played at night. So this obsession with playing it during the afternoon, I get it, because that's when it kind of was. But that was also started when there were no night lights. It's kind of the same thing. Many sports, especially here in the States, have progressed to everything's at night because lights. So
we have technology. Isn't that cool?
I just, like
now,
I
my
said,
favorite technology, because we can definitely remember the age where we had the stadium lights, but like they took like 30 minutes to warm up to actually get to to full brightness. Now we got Optus putting on light shows because they can. I love it.
Well, I'll tell you one little fact about my local university here. They did not have permanent night lights for night games until about 5 years ago. That they would actually have a local lighting company come in 3 days before a night game and put up floodlights in the corners of the stadiums to be able to play a night game, because it did not have full-time lights until about
Beautiful.
5 years ago, when they had a stadium renovation and they put them in permanently. But for the longest time at the University of Iowa, they had to bring in Musco Lighting, which is in Muscatine, Iowa, had to bring in 4 sets of floodlights for every night game that was scheduled after 5, because they did not have permanent lights, because when Kinnick Stadium was built, it was in the 40s. So those type of lightings weren't up. So most of the Iowa games for the longest time were either at 11 a.m. or 2:30 in the afternoon until.
That's awesome.
So it's been kind of crazy.
Awesome.
So that just shows you the changes over the years. Again, like I said, Australians, I wanted it 2:30. I really do.
We're on your side.
I just have a hard time seeing it being anything other than twilight or night.
Apparently,
I'm sorry, and I hate
just
saying that.
a little bit more realist, which sucks. But at the same time, the sooner you get your head around the fact that we will never have an afternoon grand final again, the better you will be. Because even if we do get afternoon one, then hey, pleasant surprise. That's like me always tipping against the Giants. Hey, this is never going to happen. But they won, cool. I don't even know if I want to tip them this round against West Coast, but we'll get there when we get there. Because it's time for something I was saying a lot. Another round, another time where I said this, especially watching those damn Giants. You guys are great, but what the blank, Donnie? It's time to fill in the blank. For those that don't know what we do on What the Blank, I got 3 statements for Donnie here. They have a blank at either the beginning, the middle, or the end. And it's up to him to fill it in with whatever he so chooses. I know a lot of you guys might be saying what the blank to some of these answers, even though they're probably right because Donnie's a genius. But start us off. Statement number 1, and I think there's a lot of teams that you could put in this category. And which is that this statement, the most meh team in the league right now is blank.
Oh, meh. That's a very interesting, such a technical term there.
But you know what I mean. Exactly.
Okay. And I thought about this one when I saw this question on the run sheet. And I looked at it, and there's two right now that really kind of come to mind. And it's maybe just because of how their seasons have been similar yet different. And that is the West Coast Eagles and the Hawthorne Hawks. Those are my two mad teams. Right now, they're sitting in this weird stage. Okay. They're sitting with 12 points currently. So they're a full 2 games behind Richmond at 20, and they're a full 2 games ahead of North Melbourne and the West Coast Eagles. So they are 2 games from the bottom and 2 games from the finals. They're in this purgatory, shall we say, because I really don't see them fighting up to finals, and I don't see them diving down and being in the wooden spoon discussion. So they literally are sitting in this weird spot where I don't know how to kind of take it. Hawthorne had that great start, but then as we kind of have seen this year, some of the teams that Hawthorne played early in the season, not so good. Now they're playing better. Hawthorne's kind of running into a little bit of what Gold Coast ran into a few years ago. Great in the first quarter, okay in the second quarter, starting to get a little scary in the third quarter, and then fourth quarter, literally game over. I mean, literally, they fall apart in the fourth quarter. It has been atrocious. The Hawthorne Hawks fourth quarters over 3 of the last 4 games. It's been scary seeing this team literally. I mean, they run out of gas with 100 miles still left in the race. And so that's been their problem. And Adelaide's kind of been the same thing. You look at it, a team that gets a big win over the Doggies and then gets absolutely plastered by GWS a couple of weeks later. So these are teams, I don't know what to kind of make of them. Is Hawthorne fully kind of embracing the change in the guard because of the fact that Mitchell's not in as many center bounces. O'Meara is not in many bounces. Shields not in as many center bounces. He's having some of the youngsters in there. And with Adelaide, it's kind of one of those where it's like they've got youngsters, but they're not playing all of them. Phil Thorpe is finding himself stuck in the sample a couple of weeks in a row. Some of they had Coach Nix this year dropped 7 players from the original team and had 7 changes come into this last week. So there's a lot of
sounds like my fantasy team.
There's a lot of meh about these two teams because they're sitting in this purgatory of they're not going to make finals. They're not going to be in the wooden spoon. What's kind of their season going to turn out to be? So it'll be fascinating to watch these two teams and where they kind of go. Do they start? Does one go up? Does one go down? Or do they kind of stay in this little purgatory 2 games out of either particular notable ending to their season?
That is a great choice. I really like that one just because, I mean, you guys know what I mean when I say, when a team is meh. You do that just by looking at them. I could give you just an audible kind of noise for any team in this league. When I think of meh, I'm almost thinking like Collingwood. And you just hear in the tone of voice when you say Collingwood, like, are they good? Yeah, kind of. Are they bad? No. It's just like, they're right there. But man, I think there's like a good chunk of this bottom like 10 team like on the ladder that just screams meh. And I think it's great. Honestly, some of the meh teams are some of the funnest to watch because you have zero expectations for what they're going to do.
But you also know too that they can come up with a brilliant game at a time that can really throw a lot of things. They're a team that's like you don't know whether you should count on them or not count on them. That's why I said they're perfect meh, because again, Hawthorn has those moments where they're a brilliant team and then the exact opposite happens.
I think it's great. If you want to talk about excitement, take a look at the Mez because you never know what you're going to expect. But one thing that we can expect from a guy is the performance we've seen from James Sicily, and he has been awarded and rewarded for his just phenomenal play for the Hawthorn Hawks. But segment number 2, Donnie, James Sicily's contract extension is blank. Of course, if you guys missed this one, he's essentially a lifer, signed a 5-year contract with them through 2027. He's with the Hawks till he's 32. But you're filling the blank to this one.
For me, this is an excellent move for the Hawks. This is a stabilizing move for a team that they needed to sign this young man. He's an incredible player. He's been a stabilizing factor coming back after his ACL injury last year. He's just come in and he's just been Mr. Consistent back there in a team that's very inconsistent when it comes to their results. So this is a great signing for the Hawthorn Hawks. This gives them the possibility. This guy is captain material. This guy can be a guy that can be your captain for the future of this footy club. This is a good signing. This is getting a top tier player on your list wrapped up to where you don't have to worry about him for a long period of time. So this is good business for me. This is an amazingly good signing by the Hawks.
I think your point really just goes to show this guy might not be exactly worth this contract, but given to what he is to this team, he is a constant light in what seems to be a constant dark for this Hawthorn team, or a constant dim light bulb, if we're going to call it, because they're one of the mad teams that we just got done talking about. So for them to be able to lock this up, I think it's great, and it's probably one of the better moves of the season so far that we've seen from a player contract standpoint.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that this isn't a very good signing. I know a little bit of Swans homer is being able to sign Isaac Heaney to a contract there. I think is another great, brilliant move for the Swans. I look at it. There's a couple of teams I think that their off seasons are going to be interesting, especially is the Western Bulldogs with English and with Melbourne with Luke Jackson, because those are a couple of big signings that I think can really solidify your future.
Those are team-changing signings. Those are team-changing signings. I
don't know about team-changing, but they're team solidifying because they keep the team together that has, again.
Well, English, I mean, I'm sorry, man, in the sense if another team was able to pick up at English.
Yeah,
One of
I
those
agree.
guys, yeah.
Well, it's a team changing if he changes places, but it's a team solidifying because it's a guy staying in an environment because he wants to be there. I mean, it's hard not to argue until Tim English went down with his injury, and then now this incredibly crazy flu that had him in the hospital this last week. In fact, he won't play again this week. That he was still an Australian ruck for me. It was hard to argue what he was doing was making a massive impact for a guy that was not exactly a ruckman, shall we say. He was your forward that kind of got thrown into the ruck after Dustin Martin had his injury issues that he had last year. So I look at it as there's great signings for your club, and there's signings that keep other clubs from getting progressively better and solidifying a team, which I think there's a couple of ones that'll be interesting this offseason to see how they go. And will there be some guys on the move that may make big impacts on their clubs next season as well?
It's going to be a fun one to watch. I can't wait. But going from a guy that is captain material to a guy that is actually a captain, this brings us to our last what the blank, and that is Dyson Heppel. Now, this is a man that is on a team that's being widely criticized, rightfully so, and also one that is under heavy media scrutiny. This player specifically for, I guess, I'll put in air quotes for you guys, his pregame antics, I guess, is what the media is almost deeming it, with him being happy on his 30th birthday and 200th career game. You know, two very nice milestones. But statement number 3, and that is Dyson Heppel's pregame actions in round 9 were blank.
All right. We got to rewind ourselves a little bit and kind of backtrack our history a little bit. Going into that game, Essendon comes off a big fourth quarter comeback to help win, to help beat the Hawthorn Hawks. I have no problem with what Heppel did before the game, because he's happy. He just got his he gets a milestone game. His team comes off a win. He's enjoying the milestone situation kind of in its entirety. So I have no problem with what he did prior. It's what his team and how his team responded against the Swans that you should have the problem with. And in fact, I'll bring in a little bit of a topic a little bit off this, is that there's a lot of drama coming down with what Luke Parker did to Dylan Shields in this game, where he kind of did that, like you're jumpy, like you didn't go into the contest, you're scared to go into a contest, and that has absolutely just grown wings and blown up.
It was so funny
in the Melbourne media, and it's one of those where it's like everybody's kind of got their sides on it. Was Luke Parker wrong? Was what Dylan and how they reacted wrong? I'm not going to delve into that, because I think, are you allowed to sledge on the field? Yes. Do I think it was a little excessive? Maybe a little bit, but that's my character. I'm not a big sledger. I'm not a big guy that's going to talk shit. I'm one of those, I just want to play. I'm not in the mood to kind of jaw jack with you, where some people are like, it's for a game. I mean, if you're going to be scared on the footy field, if he gets called out to you, there's nothing, what can you do? So it's a very interesting thing. So no, I have no problem with what Dyson Heppel did before, because they were coming off a win. He's in a milestone game. He's allowed to enjoy it.
Right.
After the game, again, hindsight's 2020. We had no idea Essendon was going to literally give what they did. And I put it more on his teammates for not showing up for his milestone game on his birthday. So it's like, I kind of, I don't blame him. I have no ill will, nor do I think that he did anything wrong, because it was before the game. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of things you can nitpick and write stories on and almost be outraged at when it comes to this Essendon football club. But when it comes to a guy being happy and celebrating a huge moment, there's better hills to die on. I think it's just ridiculous, and this is just more media being media and just making up stories and getting some clicks on headlines. That's all I think of it. So is what it is. It's stupid. Be mad at stuff that you can actually be mad at, and ignore stuff that really doesn't make a whole big of a difference. But with that being said, that's going to do it for What the Blank this week. Give us your thoughts. How would you fill in the blanks for any one of these? Who is the most Met team right now? What do you think of James Sicily's contract extension? And do you approve of Dyson Heppel's pregame actions? I know he doesn't give a damn if you do or don't, but of course I do kind of give a damn because I'm just curious. And also, I think he had the perfect statements to this, where essentially he doesn't care. And yes, dude, give me more of that, because just don't acknowledge the stupid stuff. But we got some interesting stuff coming up, because Donnie actually had to do some legit thinking, at least when it came to the forward line, for this team of the round, because we didn't get the 6-7 goal kickers this week. We had 5 guys tied with 4 this round. Am I correct? So definitely had to work for it. But with that being said, it's time for the best round, whether you're across the Pacific Ocean away from us or if you're in the States. It doesn't matter. There's only one list that matters, and that is Coach Donnie Hess's team of the round. So lay down the law for us, please, sir.
I don't know about laying down the law, but this is definitely a fun one. In fact, I think since I've started the team of the week, this is the first time I've ever had 2 players in the midfield from the same team. So this is a very interesting week this year. An incredible performance by one team that put 2 guys in the midfield because of their performance. So let's jump right into it. Again, we always start with defenders because defense wins championships. I'm a coach, so we got to start there. Amen. Starting with the defenders. Yes, Collingwood may not have had a great game, but this gentleman did. Brandon Maynard, 23 disposals, 9 intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 5 marks, 3 tackles, and 532 meters gained. When a defender kicks a goal, it's hard not to put him in the team of the week, and that is Port Adelaide's Darcy Byrne-Jones. 20 disposals, a goal, 8 intercept possessions, 4 score involvements, 9 marks, and 200 meters gained. We jump to it. It has been a career revelation for this young gentleman here from the Brisbane Lions. Dane Zorko goes out of the midfield, goes to the back, and is still making an impact with 26 disposals, 2 goals, a goal assist, 5 score involvements, 5 marks, 5 clearances, 4 tackles, and 518 meters gained. At least this gentleman showed up for his coach, GWS's Harry Perryman. 24 disposals, a goal, 5 intercept possessions, a goal assist, 4 score involvements, 8 marks, and 689 meters gained. This gentleman is the talk and the name of the entire season this year for what he is doing, and that's Carlton's Sam Doherty. 28 disposals, a goal, 8 intercept possessions, 7 score involvements, 10 marks, and 444 meters gained. Some people may look and go, Coach, why would this gentleman be in it? His team gets absolutely destroyed each week. Well, he kicked a goal, and as always, he's always getting intercept possessions, and that's West Coast's Jeremy McGovern. 23 disposals, a goal, 10 intercept possessions, 6 marks, 4 tackles, and 395 meters gained. Let's jump to the ruck really quick, because this gentleman did not have a lot of possessions, but he made an impact. Starting ruck, St. Kilda's Paddy Ryder, 10 disposals, but 3 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 7 score involvements, 5 marks, and 22 hitouts for the aging ruckman, who is still an athletic freak, and I think he is one of the reasons why St. Kilda is playing so well this season. Let's jump to the mids. Here we go. Here's our 2, both from the Western Bulldogs. We'll start off with Josh Dunkley. 24 disposals, 3 goals, 9 score involvements, 9 marks, 3 clearances, and 259 meters gained. Also from the Western Bulldogs, also getting the player of the game and the medal, was Adam Treloar. 35 disposals, 3 goals, a behind, 3 intercept possessions, 9 score involvements, 3 marks, 8 clearances, 3 tackles, and 537 meters gained. We talked about this gentleman a lot. He has come back like a house on fire, and that is Richmond's Dustin Martin. 20 disposals, 3 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 10 score involvements, 4 marks, 4 clearances, and 409 meters gained. Mr. Brownlow medal from last year, Port's Ollie Wines. 32 disposals, 2 goals, a 3 behinds, 4 intercept possessions, 2 goal assists, 12 score involvements, 5 marks, 9 clearances, 4 tackles, and 575 meters gained. And rounding out the midfield is Carlton, but it's not who you think it is. It's Sam Walsh. 31 disposals, 2 goals behind, 7 intercept possessions, 8 score involvements, 5 marks, 4 clearances, and 372 meters gained. We jump to the forwards, and as Ross said, 4 goals was the top, but 5 guys did it. So here we go. Richmond's Tom Lynch, 16 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, 2 goal assists, 8 score involvements, and 6 marks. Also with 4 goals is Geelong's Tom Hawkins, 14 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, a goal assist, 6 score involvements, 7 marks, 259 meters gained. Brisbane's Charlie Cameron, 8 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, 5 score involvements, 3 marks, 3 tackles. I mentioned this young gentleman earlier, another one that's making a huge impact at the Gold Coast, Mabior Chol, 10 disposals, 4 goals, 2 behind, 7 score involvements, 4 marks, 4 tackles, and 261 meters gained. One of the most unamazing one because of who they were playing, and that's Melbourne's Tom McDonald, 14 disposals, 4 goals, a behind, 6 score involvements, and 5 marks. This gentleman is an excitement machine. I cannot wait to watch this young gentleman grow up, and that is Melbourne's Keziah Pickett, 20 disposals, 3 goals, 2 behinds, 4 intercept possessions, 10 score involvements, 4 marks, and 357 meters gained. We jump to the bench. We'll start off again with defense. The Western Bulldogs, Caleb Daniels, 34 disposals, 8 intercept possessions, 6 score involvements, 10 marks, and 267 meters gained. It's a team of the week, so guess who's there? Mr. Christian Petrarca is our midfielder on the bench. 28 disposals, 2 goals, 4 behinds, a goal assist, 12 score involvements, 6 marks, 3 clearances, 8 tackles, and 466 meters gained. Joining the Rock is a kind of a surprise, but a gentleman that I've loved seeing him progress at the Richmond Tigers, and that is Toby Nankervis. 20 disposals, a goal, a behind, 3 score involvements, 8 clearances, 5 tackles, and 35 hitouts. And last but not least is forward from Brisbane's Zach Bailey, 19 disposals, 3 goals, 3 intercept possessions, 5 score involvements, 4 marks, and 404 meters gained. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the team of the round. A lot of guys from several teams that had really big games, but a fun round of footy this week.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that we're going to pretty much have that one able to follow up when it comes to the round 10 slate of games as we roll on into our tips for this round. And like we were saying, we made promises to you guys, and we're going to uphold those promises when it comes to making maybe some hot takes when it comes to who we think is going to win some of these games. But starting us off, Friday Night Footy, that is going to be taking place in Marvel Stadium between Carlton and the Sydney Swans. This is probably my least favorite one to tip this round, I gotta say. In terms, I'm going with Sydney. But man, it's gonna be really close, man. It's gonna be really close.
This is one of those the tipsters are on the side of Carlton, at least in the one that I looked at. I think 60%? It's 63 to 30, 63. Like 37 or something to that effect. It was something to that effect. I'm one of those. I'm gonna tip Sydney only because I look at it like this: is that Tom DeConning had a pretty good game last round, and Patrick Cripps kind of went in. But I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. Braden Pruce was kind of a lone ranger, so they could kind of get away with doing that. Tom Hickey's come back, and him and Laddams had a heck of a game against Essendon and kind of neutralized Draper a little bit. So I look at it as I think Sydney may have a better chance of getting a little bit more of the out of the center footy, which I think is what Carlton's strength has really been that able to get first to the footy. If Sydney can get first to the footy and kind of put some pressure on a defense core that's kind of being held together, we'll have to see how that handles. Again, it's a big body midfield, and Sydney's midfield has been relatively young. Do we see Kennedy go in there to kind of neutralize Cripps a little bit? Does Mills play a tagging role in this game? It'll be very fascinating. I'm going to tip Sydney in this one. But this is a danger game for the Swans because this is a good Carlton team. This is a Carlton team that's playing very well. But I also think this is one of those. This is a danger game for Carlton because this could expose their defensive flaws if Sydney can hit their kicks. If Sydney is as accurate as they were against Essendon, again, I know it's Essendon. Again, Essendon fans, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. If they're as accurate as they were against Essendon, it's going to be a long night for Carlton because it's going to be very difficult to shut down their ball movement. If they are off, like they were against Gold Coast or against Brisbane, Carlton's in and Carlton will win this game. I will say this right now. Kicking accuracy and the kicking accuracy, I think is going to be the telltale sign of who wins this. I think this game is going to be much closer than people think. I think this is under a goal. I think this comes down late. I think Sydney wins it, but I think this is a humdinger of a game. Cannot wait for it. This is a Friday night clash. I am going to be up. I'm going to be Adam. I cannot wait for this one.
I'm excited. And hopefully we get this one right. But when it comes to the next game, that's going to take us to the Geelong Cats and the Port Adelaide Power. And I was telling you guys, I promised one in this one. 10% tippers are going Port Adelaide against the Cats, and you count me in. I don't care that they're playing at the fortress known as GMHBA Stadium, because I'm riding the hot hand. I'm riding a team that there's a team that's been on and off the last 5 rounds, and we got a team that's on the 4-game winning streak. Let's go Port Adelaide. This is definitely not one I'm necessarily confident in, but I'm going to set down this one.
This is
full discrepancy. I wouldn't advise tipping Port, but I'm gonna.
Here's I'm going to kind of back you up a little bit while tipping Geelong, but I'm going to say this: if this game was being played in South Australia, if this game was being played at Adelaide Oval, I would tip Port. I'm going to say that right now, because of where this is played. That's where I think Geelong has the advantage, because Geelong is used to playing on this skinny ground. They're used to this so much more than Port was. Most teams go down to GMHBA and have trouble because of its skinny dimensions. I think if this game was played at the Adelaide Oval, I would tip Port in this one. This is 100% honest. Yes, Port fans, I'm being honest. I would tip Port if this wasn't a GMHBA. I think it makes that big a difference. I think Geelong wins this, but this is another humdinger, another really good game, 10:45 our time. If I didn't have a crazy week this week and had 80-35 from my local team, the Roosters, I would have asked Ross to stream this, because this, I think, is going to be another game of the round contender. So I may watch this live. I may not, because it's going to be a long day of footy. That's Saturday. I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the episode.
Oh, we got 2 of them in 9:45. I'm watching 2 games of footy this Friday. Let's go. Okay, I'll count that one as a dub for me. You guys can come see me kind of lose it on Twitter, possibly. I'm good at doing that. Next one is the Western Bulldogs taking on the Gold Coast Suns in Mars Stadium. I went back and forth on this one. I don't agree with the 92 to 8% in spread. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer than this, but I am going to go with the doggies, but I'm not super sold on them.
All right. You had your fire in the dark. I have mine. I'm tipping the Suns.
This is a better tip than mine. No, for sure.
The Suns on this one, because no Tim English. Yes, it's at Mars Stadium at Ballarat, and the last time they played at Ballarat, they did not play really well. I think Gold Coast has got some positive mo. Jared Witts, I think, is going to have another day out against another less than impressive ruck. I think Tuke Miller and Matty Rowell have been playing excellent football. Mabio Chol and Levi Casbolt have both been able to put goals on the board for the Gold Coast Suns. I'm going to take the risk here. I'm going to tip the Suns to get the upset at Mars Stadium in Ballarat and get another big 4 points for the Queensland side.
I freaking love it, Tommy. I'm all here for a Gold Coast Suns dub. And in this week's episode, or this week's edition of My Word, these odds keep on getting larger. That is the North Melbourne Roos, because if you take a look at the bet line here, we got the Melbourne D's sitting in the Bucko 1 with the North Melbourne Roos, Donnie. They break $20, $21. Oh, man, that's so tough. But 98% of tippers going with the D's in this one, understandably so. Count me 98.
In. 98. Wow. There's 2% of some very, very
that's
positive.
More than I thought it was going to be.
Mine, the tipping thing I'm looking at currently is at 99 to 1. So
that's more like it.
Again, I think this is an easy one. I think I tip Melbourne. Unless Melbourne is struck down and almost all of their starters are not playing. And even still, I think Melbourne's probably a little bit better than North Melbourne at this present point. So I'm going to tip the D's in this one. how ugly does this get, or does Melbourne kind of put this in cruise control and kind of just save energy for later on in the year?
Guess we're going to find out. Next one, St. Kilda and the Adelaide Crows at the Oval. 81% of tippers according to afl.com.au/tipping, my official site. I don't know. I feel like we're really splitting hairs because we're kind of off by like 1% on either site we're looking at. But 81% going with St. Kilda in this one. I'll join them, even though that it might be a closer game than the odds might show, than the betting odds might show.
This is one of those. A few weeks ago, I would have been much more apt to think about tipping Adelaide, but the last few weeks they've kind of regressed.
You lose to GWS. That's not good.
That's one of those big ones. I'm going to tip the Saints in this. I'm going to tip the Saints in this one. But again, Adelaide is a team that, again, as I said in the Met, they come up with games out of nowhere. It's like they pull it out of a body cavity. I'm not going to say on the podcast. I'm going to tip St. Kilda, but this is another one I look at and I go, if there's an upset that may come out of nowhere, this might be it. I know you would say, well, coach, if you tip it, it's not out of nowhere. It's out of nowhere because most people are not tipping this one. So I'm looking at this one. This is the possibility of an upset besides the one that I tipped. So St. Kilda, but I think Adelaide's in a little bit more of a sniff than some people may give them credit.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Next one we got is a team that, or it's a game that's probably not going to be as close as this previous one. That's Richmond and Essendon. Tigers all the way. Go Tigers.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the Essendon Football Club is really sitting in any kind of mode of positivity at all. And unfortunately, it is only getting worse. The more the media discusses this, the harder it's going to get for these Essendon players. Dream time sometimes can breed an interestingly fun game. But I think the Tigers are starting to kind of find their mojo a little bit. I think some of the additions, Morris Rioli Jr. has come in and been a revelation. I think Tom Lynch is starting to find his kicking boots again. So I like the Tigers in this one. I think Dusty has brought some positive momentum to this Richmond Tigers team, and they're going to keep riding the wave. So I'm going to tip the Tigers.
I also got to say, if the Giants somehow lose to the West Coast Eagles, I don't think I'll ever emotionally recover from this. So tipping the Giants, we'll see how it goes. I'm nervous.
I'm not so nervous because I would have been more nervous if West Coast would have given some run for their monies over the last couple of games. But the insipidness of their performances makes me to believe that the first time head coaching of their assistant coach taking over for Leon Cameron, I think he gets his first win. He gets off the schneid. I think he gets some confidence to a GWS team that right now is they're kind of running low on emotional. They're kind of running low emotionally just because of how kind of that Carleton game kind of slipped away from them a lot.
That's putting it lightly.
So unfortunately, I'll tip GWS in this one. I don't like West Coast mood. I don't like how they've handled things. I think it's just been one stuff up over and after another.
That'd be horrible. I guess we'll see. Next one, second to last game of the round. That's going to be the Brisbane Lions taking on the Hawthorn Hawks. We got one team that's the other one that's that's what I'll go with right there. If you can, that's a new language. I was telling Donnie that there's 3 English speaking countries. I'll speak different languages. You got American, you got Australian, and you got British. All 3 different languages. I'm introducing a 4th one here on this episode where it's the Gruntanese. Yes, I'm a genius. That works great. So that's the Brisbane Lions. There's no way in hell I'm tipping Hawthorn over the Brisbane right now because Brisbane is, in my eyes, the second best team in the comp at this point. Hawthorn is not. So the math checks out on my tip.
As I kind of stated earlier in the thing, it's like Brisbane. If I'm the Brisbane Lions, there's one thing that you kind of take it in is that as long as you're within 10 points of the Hawthorn Hawks going into the 4th quarter, you're golden. Because in the 4th quarter they will fall apart.
So bad.
If history stays the way it goes. If Brisbane can be trail this entire game, if they get to the 4th quarter and they're within 2 goals, Brisbane will win this. I don't think it's going to be that close. I think Brisbane is starting to play better. Hipwood is back, which is crazy to think that he hasn't played for over a year, and he actually made a decent impact in his first game back from the ACL tear, which I think is scary for other teams, knowing Hipwood's back. You're going to get Danaher back. You're going to get McStay back. This Lions team is getting better as the season goes on. I'm going to tip the Lions in this one. Like I said, the Meh Hawks unfortunately continued to stay in the meh category.
I'm so sorry, guys. You're just not. I promise you might be a fan of them. You are not meh. It's just that your team is. Last game of the round is going to be one team that is also meh, and another one that had a very meh performance in round 9, and that is Freo versus the Collingwood Magpies. Tipping Freo. This is, if you need a bounce back game, Collingwood might be one of the better teams to have it against, especially with it being at the very, very home friendly confines of Optus Stadium. I'm tipping Freo in this one. I could see it being, like a 4-goal spread, so like somewhat close, but Freo should be able to handle them in bounce back well.
This is another one of those where if Freo had to go on the road again and go to the MCG and play Carlton, I'd be a little bit more likelihood to think about tipping Carlton. Going home, I think Justin Longmuir is going to be able to kind of grab his guys, go, hey, wake up. You had your bugger game. You buggered it up. You lost a game you probably should have won. You played, I think you played a better Gold Coast team than I think a lot of people give him credit for. So I don't think it's as bad a loss as some people think. Fremantle wins this. I think they get their mojo back. Unfortunately, Brody Grundy is looming that much larger a loss now because of the fact that I think he kind of was a stabilizer. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think these last few weeks have kind of shown Jordan DeGoey might be kind of a flash in the pan player a little bit more than a lot of people think. And if you're Collingwood, you're almost kind of smiling because you may get the guy for a little less money because he's in his opportunity to make himself the money that I think he wants. He's not playing up to it. So I'm going to tip Fremantle in this one. I just think home cooking, home confines, a beatable team that's coming in, that's had some issues. I think this is kind of the best case scenario for Fremantle. Freo wins this one at home.
Well, that is about going to wrap it for our tips this round. The most notable ones you guys might want to keep your eyes on. This one, more than mine, is Donnie's going with the Gold Coast Suns over the Western Bulldogs. My more of a pipe bomb, the Port Adelaide Power over the Geelong Cats. But hey, this is one of those tips where, you know what? If this doesn't happen, I don't see
it's an all or nothing.
I don't seem that stupid because there's a decent argument you can make, especially with the old GMHBA one. But if I get this right, Donnie, I'm gonna feel like a genius, even though I really am not. Don't give me too much credit. And this is one where I'm glad we're trading big picks because our tipping competition is super tight, especially with all of us going 6-3 last round. No ground gained or lost. So this is one where if either of us get them right, we're the same. If either of us get them wrong, we're still the same. So, or at least we have the chance to be.
The biggest question will be is how Brad tips it, since Brad's still leading by 4 games over you, 6 games over me. So there's still that thing. But yeah, I thought it was funny last week. All 4 of the contenders in this little tipping comp that we have all went 6-3 because you and Brad got the first one right with the Western Bulldogs beating Collingwood. Yep. But you guys both tipped Carlton, where Zach and I both tipped GWS. So we both missed 2 with Fremantle and with Geelong, and we both missed 1 when it comes to our off-ball one. So we all went 6-3 last week. So it maintains a 4-game lead for Brad. With 6-game lead over me and 11-game lead over Zach. So, but before we end the episode, really quickly, a little bit of self-promotion here, and I don't normally like doing this, but for those of you, again, should do it more I will show my hat this week. This is a crazy week of footy for yours truly here. This weekend is our annual 80-35 tournament here in Des Moines, where the Roosters will be hosting a lot of teams from the central part of the country, with Denver, with Tulsa. with Kansas City, with Chicago and Madison coming all the way, including two women's team, the Centennial Tigers and the women's team from Minnesota also will be here too. So there will be women's games.
Honestly,
This is a fun tournament
stupid.
for us. This is what, say that again?
Where's Centennial from? I'm
Denver. They're a Denver. They're a Denver. Well, here's a little bit of inside US AFL knowledge. Basically, some women that were former Denver Bulldogs split off and kind of started their own club, which I've got people on both sides of that particular heated discussion. So I would say we won't go any further than that. Yeah, there was a little bit of drama in that, so I won't go any further into it. But let's just say that it was not. There were not genteel feelings when it came to how this kind of whole thing went down. So Centennial is basically a all women's club in Denver that kind of were some girls that separated off from the Denver Bulldogs women's team, and they're coming and they're going to play at least a game against the Minnesota Freeze women's team. And I think they're going to try to get a women's all-comers game a little bit later in the day to get any other women that might potentially come out. So this is a fun tournament. If you want to keep an eye on the tournament results, please go to the Des Moines Roosters Twitter account at DM Footy Roosters. Oh my gosh, I cannot believe I cannot remember the own Twitter account.
Oh boy,
I know I'm slacking big time. I know, but
so
yeah,
I'll give you a pass.
Yeah, DM Roosters Footy on Twitter. I run the account, and I'm going to try to be sure that account is up to date on how things are going, both for the Roosters and for the tournament and in it as itself. The Roosters we're trying to win our home tournament for the first time in history. I think we've got a decent chance this year. We've been undermanned, at least for our numbers, but I think a 10-a-side tournament really lets some of our talent that we do have come out. So I think it's going to be fascinating tournament. And then going off the podcast, there will be another Donnie's Disposals hopefully coming out very soon. We'll have to talk with Ross about this. I have a very, very special
don't worry,
guest.
it's coming out ASAP because I
have
huge.
A very, very special guest. My first ever AFLW player. He's retired. Is a two-time Premiership player. I'm not going to say the name, but for those who are listening, a two-time Premiership player is going to be having a chat with yours truly. Hopefully we will get this out before the weekend. I'm not going to say a name. I'm going to let you think about it in the comment section. Why don't you put down who you think is going to be on the podcast? I cannot wait.
Good little tease. I love it.
I will also tease it out tomorrow on Twitter and see if anybody bites. And then I will discuss with him and then put that out very soon. I cannot wait. This is going to be a fun round of footy. And then I'm also potentially sounds like going to be on the Blue Abroad podcast with Terry Degani, who was my Carlton Aussie Rules supporter, previewing the Carlton Sydney game for him because we had so much fun chatting. We thought we'd talk again when our two clubs decided to lock horns. So a fun footy week for yours truly here. So I will stop with the self-promotion.
No, keep promoting because you don't do enough because you put out just nothing but amazing content, especially another one. Want to shout for Donnie as well. His recent Donnie's Disposal coming out last week with footy journalist Sarah Burt. That was a fun one as well. So please, if you haven't had the opportunity yet, go ahead and check that one out. You're only doing yourself a favor. Of course, after listening to this one, which if you're going to listen to it, you're pretty much done with this one anyway, so it doesn't really yeah, right now go watch it. Do yourself a favor. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to our round 9 breakdown. Let us know your thoughts. Are you worried with Sydney's performance? What do we think about the Dustin Martin news that we're going to have to take it with a mountain of salt? And is the media overreacting to everything that has ever happened? Yes, and yes. But make sure you can check us out: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rumble, Twitch. Go ahead, subscribe and follow us. We're also on social medias on Instagram and Twitter at Fourth and Long Media, or you can find everything over at thefourthandlong.com or all your footy stuff, specifically thefourthandlong.com/AFL. You can find Donnie at Coach Hess 40 over on Instagram and Twitter as well. But with that being said, your thoughts on the Victorian media in one word or phrase. Good luck.
Oh, you set me up so bad, sir. You gave me a sledge like no other. entertaining. I think they're entertaining
Okay.
because there are times that I don't think they realize that they are sometimes leaning towards their hometown clubs a little bit as much. But the one thing I got to give though is that as much as they profusely talk about them, they viciously destroy them at times. And it's very fascinating how they will turn like a pit of vipers on each other. And it's almost kind of fascinating to watch, just to listen to how vicious they have been on Essendon and everything that's kind of happened with them over these last couple of days since their game against Sydney has been interesting. Because I know many of the Bombers fans that I know, I've told them, I said, I'm not one to revel in teams misery. I'm not. I never have been, not even in my sports over here. Am I somebody that like that? So I try to be as positive as I can with people. So I'm not one of those. I'm not going to rub it in people's faces. So it's not in my nature. So I try to be as respectful and try to be as understanding, because I know what it's like to cheer for a team that's not playing well. I mean, that's happens.
All I know.
And I'm not talking just footy. I'm talking sport overall in general.
That's all I know. Once again, Donnie.
We know the pain, sir. We both know the pain.
On that very painful note, ladies and gentlemen, hope you have a great week, a great round of footy, and we will see you after we continue to realize that we'll never have an afternoon grand final again. Have fun with those thoughts.